Today, it's just me and Beige. Where's Heather? That's something you should always be asking yourself. This is ChillPoint. When you least expect it, that is when she is behind you.
Yeah, she's. Not, I mean, I'm glad that we have that our flooring in our house creaks a little bit, so that I can hear when she's like walking into the room.
Yeah, that nightingale flooring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, all the everything. Oh, my mic is off. Do you think it's off over there?
It's possible that I muted the wrong mic.
I'm on 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me go do that.
One sec.
It's my mic. I'll take responsibility.
Yes. The quietest Beige is the deadliest Beige.
I pressed the on button.
So now all three are on? Or
Yes.
now are... Oh.
All 3 are on. I don't know which one you're on. I didn't bother to ask.
Oh, all right.
Which one are you on?
I would be on number 4.
I will turn off number 2.
All right.
All right.
There might be... If number 2 is on and there's no actual microphone attached to it, it sometimes makes additional background noise. Anyway, hey everybody, how's it going? If it wasn't clear from the beginning of this whole thing, it's been a busy day today. We were filming this morning and doing some other stuff, so hopefully
We'll knock this one out in a hurry.
Everything is fine and things will continue to be fine.
Nice.
How are you? I hope you are having a good time, and welcome to ChillPoint, which is the show that I just remembered we are doing.
Yep. I'm actually, despite the fact that I tried my level best to start with a derail, that the mic just derailed us automatically.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. ChillPoint, show where we talk about the week's video game news in a just kind of relaxed, casual way. Mm-hmm. And also, we talk about the episode of ChillPoint that went up yesterday, which, if you want to, if this relaxed, casual video game news isn't for you and you want hard-hitting, very fact-based video game news, then ChillPoint is also probably not for you.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, if you want to know things that actually happened yesterday, you could. If you want to go away from here, you can go watch 4 hours of the Game Awards to find out some stuff that happened, because I think we're going to talk about that today.
That's true.
Yeah,
it's true. And also, myself and Heather and Matt Wiggins, our friend from Vancouver, joined us remotely
for the co-stream
for a co-stream of the Game Awards last night, which that will also that's on Twitch and it'll be up on our YouTube channel. Hopefully, most of it.
Oh, yeah.
There may be some parts that get muted because they do that sometimes, and they either the music from trailers or the fact that there is just like a Snoop Dogg performance singing his song that might be copyrighted.
Neat. All right. I have an explanation to people who are wondering why I'm pulling faces for the entire show.
It's just his face, okay? He can't stop that.
I have what I think is like a tiny little abrasion to the underside of my eyelid, and that's why I'm kind of like blinking funny and stuff. And I can't do anything about it. I have to wait for it to heal. I think these sometimes happen to me when I wake up in the morning. It's like, oh, now you have this problem. And I'm like, not on my eyeball. I'm like, nope, not your eyeball. You're just going to be a little uncomfortable wearing your contact lens today. So I'm going to be doing this a lot and like lots of things and like trying to like give myself relief.
It turns out while you were asleep, you rolled a natural one.
Yep. You know,
When you didn't even know you were rolling.
that whole thing where you're like, oh, I slept on my pillow wrong apparently, and then my neck is sore for the whole day. It's the same kind of thing. It's like I opened my eyes and I did that incorrectly.
Anyway. Hey, everybody. Let's talk about this week's episode of ChillPoint. Starting with the first story, talking about electronic arts.
Yeah.
And as lots of people sort of reiterated in the comments, it feels weird to just have a positive story about electronic arts, but that's how it is.
Yeah. You know,
In this particular narrow area, not saying anything about electronic arts as a company and other practices, but in this very particular narrow area, they pledged to make a bunch of their accessibility patents. Obviously, they have tons and tons and tons of patents for all sorts of things. These are patents specifically related to accessibility innovations.
okay.
And they pledged to make them
Or available royalty free,
available royalty free. They're not like
public domain.
public domain, like they're not releasing the patent.
Yeah.
But they have pledged to make it available royalty free in not just like we promise, but in a legally binding way.
Yeah. That's notching a W in that category for electronic arts, you know?
Yeah.
So that
And
one against all the L's, but you know.
And it's like, and it's one of these things where, and you know, somebody I saw one or two people in the comments being like, well, you know, they've already had like some of these patents were filed like in 2020.
Yeah.
So like they've already had like 4 years with this stuff, which is true.
Yeah.
But I mean, especially like accessibility innovations, more so than maybe some other things, like, you know, the idea that sort of anybody can now can use those things. Or, I mean, it's like anybody can look at those patents and be like, oh, that's a cool idea.
Yeah.
I can implement that. Or the other thing is that, like, if I want to implement some accessibility features, I don't have to be worried that that EA is gonna come and try to get my stuff.
And there's a
because that's, you know, that's sort of like sort of threat of possible patent activity is something that can really put a damper on any kind of like research.
Yeah, especially if you were trying to implement something the same way and all of a sudden like you were partway through your own development for your own video game or whatever, and then you notice that, oh shit, EA has actually patented the same thing that I was just in the middle of doing.
Right.
And then you can't prove prior art because you're working on it at the same time, and so you're like, I'm effed, I didn't get there fast enough. There's a few things that I think are interesting about this, because one, it proves again that corporations are largely made up of people, and that by default, corporations always end up doing things that are like to their own benefit and to no one else's, right? That it's always like those two things always go hand in hand. It's like to our own benefit and ensure that nobody else can benefit from the same thing, because that's what's competitive. That's competitive advantage, right? That mindset is always intact. But corporations are made up of people, which means that on occasion, people within the corporation will say to other people in the corporation, hey, you know, it actually is better for us to release this as a royalty-free application and to let people know it's available to use. It is better for us to do that and convince enough people who can say, yeah, you know what, I feel the same way.
Well, and it's when interests, you know, it's always encouraging when the interests align between the sort of corporate thing and the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen all the time.
It's true.
But when interests align where it's like realistically, I don't think like these accessibility I don't think there's a ton of people who are buying a game based on whether it has particular accessibility feature or not, unless they are a member of the public who is served by that accessibility feature.
Right.
But those tend to be, that's a very low percentage of people.
Yes.
And so that's why there's a problem with, that's why it's like, well, it's like it doesn't, in a lot of cases, it doesn't make financial sense to spend all the effort to make all these accessibility features.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Right? There's some things that you want to put in not because they make financial sense, but because it makes it available to more people. Like the amount
It
of
widens your customer base.
Yeah. And it's just, and it's, there's from a purely practical point of view, widens your customer base, goodwill and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But also just from a like sort of fundamental, one from like the sort of Disabilities Act kind of thing, like making it. I guess it's not the ADA here, but
no, it is not.
Whatever the Canadian equivalent is.
Yeah.
But it's also like, but it's just the right thing to do for whatever that's.
Well,
but it's like if you looked at the actual balance sheet, the time spent to do that feature versus if they could somehow figure out the number of people who bought it because of that feature.
Yeah.
I would guess it doesn't actually make, like, the finances don't necessarily work out, but that's fine.
We should also look at the fact that what they have done here is they've said, we've made a patent encapsulating an accessibility feature.
Right.
Right? We did not implement anything about that patent. We've merely made the patent.
That's true. And I mean, some EA games have accessibility stuff, some don't. It's not like all EA games have all of these things. In fact, some of these patented things may not have been implemented in any games.
Exactly.
But this idea that like accessibility is excellent to have in a game, but there are a lot of circumstances, but you can't necessarily justify it from like a monetary point of view.
Yeah.
You have to justify it, sort of use other metrics to justify it.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like that's not to say that they shouldn't be there. I want to make that clear. But it also means that those patents, from EA's point of view, those patents are not necessarily something that's making them a ton of money.
Yes.
Like that's not necessarily a big competitive advantage having those patents.
Right.
But having sort of everybody, one, they get a bunch of goodwill by saying we're going to release them and allow anybody to use them.
Yeah.
And the more people in the industry that are doing things of this nature, the easier it becomes for everybody to do the accessibility stuff, right?
Exactly, yeah.
New libraries come out, new systems come out, and them opening up their patents may encourage other people to open up their patents as well, and then everybody and cross-sharing. It's this sort of cross-sharing, but it's particularly cross-sharing in this area where there maybe isn't a ton of financial friction for it. It's like we don't actually lose that much by doing this.
It's like the Xbox adaptive controller.
Yeah, and it's nice when a corporation can kind of understand that. It's like no, it's like I know the instinct is to go, hold everything in your grip as tight as possible, but it's like it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. You can let this. It's like everyone. It will help everybody if you let this go. Yeah. And including you.
Yeah. And sometimes it is a lot about being the first to do a thing gives others courage to follow along. If once you've made a difference in the world, then other people being like, you know what, I could do that same thing, and push and encourage people to do the thing that is like, this actually is the moral stance or the ethical stance. It's the right thing to do in a larger context. So yeah. There was a third thought I had about this, but I think we've kind of covered the ground. So yeah.
Of course, from a ChillPoint point of view, of course, I would say 60%, 75% of this story was mostly because the diagrams that go along with patent applications, regardless of the circumstance of what the application is about, are often hilarious. Just they have like they have like the patent is for adaptive gaming tutorial illustrated by man standing next to cube. It's like what was this supposed to, or yes, the black and white color blindness test. Because the American patent system appears to be always in black and white, I think.
I know there've been a lot of people in chat being like mentioning it's like the amount of people who have disabilities in summation, like when you look at everybody, that it is not a small number because obviously
right. But of course they all have disabilities in different ways.
Exactly, and so the idea of implementing anything into a video game. Like a color blindness mode as an example, I guess we could pick that right off the thing. It's like, well, there's multiple types of color blindness.
Right.
And some of those might be, especially if you're not coming at it properly. I think this is the point I was going to make earlier. It's like, for color blindness especially, it's one of those things where it's like, your designers might have designed the game in such a way that somebody's color blindness might be completely incompatible with how you've designed your game. And now you really have to think, oh shit, how do I represent this puzzle? If you turn on the accessibility feature to say, well, we need it to do this, it's like, well, then I have to ensure that everything that I had designed to work only one way, that I have to go back and redesign it, which then makes me think accessibility is one of those things in game design that not only you don't have like a accessibility czar who like lives in the company and they have their own little office and they go around to all the people and be like, hope you're doing the accessible thing. It's like you have to literally teach it to game designers, all of them, so they understand how to approach.
I mean, I would hope that some of the bigger companies do have somebody that's responsible for that.
And you would, but if you just had that one person, it's like they're just going around telling everybody, it's like, well, that's not accessible, and everyone's like, oh Christ, now I got to go back and redesign. It's like, but if that person is teaching designers, or you have a whole team of people who's like, our job is to assess and then educate everybody in the company to approach making a block sliding puzzle in a way that's actually accessible to people who have color blindness, then it's like, okay, then now we're all doing it because we've all been taught how.
And as folks in the chat have mentioned, there is the other thing with accessibility features where just because you don't have color blindness, doesn't mean that, like, say, I mean, the usual, like, colorblind is a good example because the usual fix for it is
a palette swap.
Either a palette swap, but the better fix is, using some sort of non-color based indicator. So using patterns, like a pattern or a making the shapes a different shape, or putting like a little symbol on the different shapes as well as a color. And that can be quite useful even if you're not colorblind. Just be like, oh, or just you go like, oh, my monitor is badly calibrated, so I thought those two colors of green were the same.
But then also just being able to look at a thing and being like, oh, I get it. It's different in this way, and that actually I can process that faster or easier. Like I wasn't looking for this as a thing, but now that I know that these are the important bits of the game, it's like I'm not overlooking that. So
anyway, I was actually on the subject of accessibility. We'll maybe talk about it a little bit later, but the video game awards we were watching last night turned on the YouTube subtitles.
Okay.
Which generally did a pretty good job.
Okay.
Except for one, they were quite markedly delayed.
Oh.
They were delayed by like maybe 2 or 3 seconds.
Oh no.
Which seemed like a bigger delay than they usually are. Right. I don't know why that was. And also, the thing that I actually found a little bit annoying is that like there were quite a few developers from Japan or from other countries that would come up with a translator.
Right.
And then so they would speak, and then the translator would speak. And it's like YouTube and Google 100% have the ability to do live translation.
Yes.
There's literally like
Products.
a web app that they make that does that.
Yes.
And YouTube can do it.
Yep.
But they did but what you get is square brackets foreign language. Which is great because they will be like, the designer will come up, speak in Japanese for a little bit, and then the translator will come, and the moment the translator starts speaking, the speaking in a foreign language subtitle from before will finally get there.
It'll
So
show up, yeah.
the translator will be speaking in English with foreign language.
That, I mean, now that we're on the tangent of this, though, I think that's really interesting because the nature of closed captioning, even in like something, this is live, right? But usually it's like, this is live on television with like a 7-second delay.
Right.
Which would tend to give, I don't know too much about this, so I'm going to guess here, and maybe I'll get this right. That 7-second delay, I'm sure, also gives the caption writers time to actually transcribe what's going on screen, like on like live news or something, right? Because television shows already have their captions built into the caption track, so that hopefully all that is already correct. But I would assume something like the Game Awards, which has a certain level of money, that they would be, why not go live, and operate on a 3-minute delay and really give your people time to like, I'm going to write the captions. We're going to have people here to do this stuff, make sure that it's all correct. And then
I was under the impression that YouTube didn't
but I'm saying
didn't do manual captions at all, but maybe it does.
It would be very, because you can plug in subtitles, like a subtitle file to something that is finished, but it's like, it would be interesting if YouTube implemented for streamers a thing where it's like, well, if you want to use a third-party captioning firm or something like that, you could do that, and they could be like transcribing your shit, and you'd be on like a 2 to 3 minute delay broadcast to the web while your stuff gets sent to the caption house. Caption house writes your stuff up, which relays it back to wherever. I think that would be an interesting business or an interesting value add to be like, we actually have accurate subtitles, but I know that, or at least we have proper closed captioning.
Doing that live would be a pretty big ask.
Yeah.
But yeah. My thing was that they should have had the Game Awards at least like Japanese translator.
Absolutely.
Rather than have each group have to bring in whoever they happen to, like, whether it's a professional translator or just somebody on staff that happens to be able to do it.
Yeah.
They could have had just Video Game Awards translator kind of standing off to the side.
Yeah.
And so, because it's always like, there'll be people standing up, 3 or 4 people will come up on stage. You'd be like, are all of you developers? Or one of you translator? And the rest of you are developers? Is the translator like also work for the company, or have they just been brought in?
They should bring them up on stage, but they should be dressed in a black, like in Bunraku gear. Nobody knows what I'm talking about, but it's stagehand gear, right? The kind of thing. It's like you have like a black thing in front of your face, and the guy's talking, but you're standing behind him on a microphone. And you're saying everything after him.
The translator doesn't have to be
invisible.
Doesn't have to be like dressed all like a ninja or something.
Yeah.
They could just, be a normal person.
Pad onto the stage. You can't hear them. They just kind of like pop up behind people.
Anyway. We were co-streaming the YouTube stream. Sorry, just to make that clear. It was the Video Game Awards was
YouTube only?
It was YouTube and Twitch at the same time. We happened to be doing it from the YouTube stream just because it seemed to be a little more reliable. But,
nice. All right. That's interesting.
Anyway. Let's move on to Call of Duty. Wait, Call of Duty 6 Zombies.
6 zombies? I could take 6 zombies.
Yeah, which actually doesn't sound that bad.
Yeah,
really.
if I was in the Call of Duty world, I definitely would be able to take 6 zombies.
Call of Duty 6 : Zombies.
Oh.
Which I wish it was Call of Duty : 6 Zombies. That one's Dave, and that one's Jeff. They like, you could give them all different names and personalities if they're only 6.
Yeah, that's Keith. Oh, poor Keith.
Yeah, Keith is It's a good zombie name. I like that. But and so this is talking about that the report, and I'm not sure if this has actually been like confirmed by either party involved in it, or whether it's still in the sort of it's leaked area. At least the article I was looking at, it didn't have a statement from either of the parties, but the end result is that it is rumored, I guess, that all of the voice actors for Call of Duty 6 Zombies have walked off set, have declined to continue working on it because the contracts did not have sufficient
protection against
safeguards against the idea of using their voices as AI stuff. And because Call of Duty Zombies, it's sort of a side story related to the mainline game, but there are characters in it that they've been playing for a while, right, in both the Call of Duty and the other Zombies games and stuff. And so those characters, I guess, might sound different in the
it's funny, right? Because it's like all the work they've done until now, then I don't know how much of a voice pack that they actually how much they've given. It's like, well, they've walked away. Does Treyarch in the previous contracts, are they like, well, they didn't sign anything against us using what we already have of their voices, so
I mean, maybe that might be part of the contention, right? Is that they're sort of retroactive. And if you don't know, this is there was stuff and actually we found out sort of partway through, we noticed that there were quite a few people who were wearing the same pin during the event, and I actually thought it was like a carnation, like it was sort of a red pin with a thing in the middle, which was initially I actually thought it was like for sort of SAG-AFTRA solidarity. It was actually for the Palestinian
for ceasefire.
So ceasefire, which is also a very good cause. But the idea that the SAG-AFTRA is, I think they're still actually an ongoing sort of. It's not quite like a strike because there's still
people are working,
because it's only a sort of a strike against some companies because some companies are following the rules.
Yeah.
But they are but they're protesting against AI usage of stuff. So it's a kind of a big deal right now. And especially, I can imagine. Now haven't played Call of Duty Zombies, but I can imagine that isn't, zombie noises, zombie stuff, or the thing where it's sort of a secondary product. Right. There's the Call of Duty, and then there's sort of this zombies offshoot. Although, considering that they keep making them, presumably they've been very successful. The Call of Duty, the zombies things have been quite successful. They seem to do them as like a DLC for all the Call of Duty games.
Oh, okay.
But I can imagine that it's an area where they might be looking to be like, well, I mean, for the full game, we'll get the real voice actors and stuff. But the zombies game, maybe nobody will notice if we get in a few little AI stuff.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm sure that there's that sentiment of, how much do we have of their voice, and how much can we reuse, and just cut the tape up to make it sound like they're doing zombies? Like, is there a way to do that?
All right, we have them saying Zamboni.
Yeah. Can we just reorder the phonemes a little bit?
Yeah.
And, I mean, now, I think that would be funny as hell. And because if you're making a zombies game anyway, you shouldn't be taking yourself seriously. And it would be really funny if they just said, okay, you know what, we're going to take all the voice recordings that we already have, and we're just going to reorder the phonemes so that it's going to sound like ass, but that's part of the charm. And I'm like, that would be way funnier if you decide to do that. If you're going to be like, we're not going to pay our VAs to any more money, but we are going to do this, which sounds so stupid. And I'd be like, oh, I like a good joke.
I mean, I don't like that they're still not paying them.
They're still not paying them, but I like a good joke. Oh no. Yeah.
It's the South Park did that with Isaac Hayes.
Oh, yeah. That's
when
right.
when he left, yeah. But they had Chef be like brainwashed, so he was talking funny because they were just using clips,
Right. Yeah.
and re-editing it.
Oh, God.
But the yeah. So I mean, we'll see what comes. A small thing, and I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but that I always, and again, I haven't played Call of Duty Zombies, but the thing that it always bugs me with these things is that, look, zombies are scary. Hordes of zombies will come and bite your face or whatever. But they're not scarier than an equivalent number of guys with guns. Like, guys with machine guns are scarier than zombies.
Because they can hit you at distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, you still have to shoot them in the, like, you still, like, zombies you want to shoot in the head, and guys with guns, like, it's just when you're like, oh no, I'm alone in a shopping mall and there's a horde of zombies outside. Yeah, that's scary. But I'm alone in the shopping mall and there's 500 guys with guns outside. That's worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like that's something. Or there's like, it was just like a poster or something. It was like it's like a zombie like in space, or so it was like a zombie like in like a spacesuit.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, surely that actually makes the zombie much less dangerous.
Yes.
Because it's got like a thing over its face. It can't bite people.
Yeah, it's his main thing that it does is now been completely neutralized, because the zombie's not going to have the mind of, how do I get this thing off? It's just going to keep trying to bite its way through a helmet.
I was like, that's a way to like disarm a zombie, basically. Anyway.
Oh, God, yeah, the terrifying idea, a tangent, but on the ISS, I think it was Chris Hadfield who was talking about this, where it was like...
There were zombies?
Well, no, he was in space. He was doing a spacewalk, and his like one of his hoses that carries like drinking water or whatever came loose, and so it was like slowly dripping into his helmet.
Oh right, it was like filling up his helmet.
Yeah, like not that fast obviously, but it was like, but he knew the thing was like, this was working around. He's like, and the thing is you can't put your hand up to wipe it away or to move it. So when it gets on your face or like in front of you, you are effectively blind. And then you're like, also like, I'm also going to run out of space in here eventually. I can't drink all the water, right? It'd be best if I could drink the water, right?
Keep drinking.
Yeah, it's like, you can't get it near your mouth because it won't come near your mouth. And it's just like, oh yeah, this sucks. And yeah, he had to basically like abort the spacewalk, and it took them an hour to get him back inside. So you're like, oh, you have to be blind for an hour outside, making your way along the thing. And I'm just like, oh God, that's terrifying. That's terrifying.
So
I'm saying you can drown a zombie that way.
The secondary part of the story is that
Right, there were two parts.
Is that they released the splash screen for a holiday themed addition to the zombies thing called Necroclaws. That had this like zombie with 6 fingers.
Yeah.
In like a really not like a subtle way either.
Yeah,
it was like right in the foreground.
I do think it's funny that somebody in chat's like, if they had just immediately come out and said no, because it's COD 6 zombies. That's why he has 6 fingers. We thought you would get it.
Or they made
fine, you don't get it.
And they made like the 6th finger like all kind of weird, like as if it's like a mutated zombie or something.
But it's like, no, that's not what happened. They're just like, oh shit, they noticed it was AI. Yeah, of course there is 6 fingers in people's faces. I mean, I don't look at stuff that carefully when I'm online anyway. You can tell from the way I share stuff with people, but. I'm like, would I have seen that or not? Because just looking at it, I'm like, oh yeah, that is wrong. Yeah, I don't like that. The house was different though. The buildings, I was like, I don't see anything immediately wrong, but I know that there was something that didn't seem right.
Yeah, the house was just that like there was like a window, and so it was like the house, and then there's a line, and then there's the window, and the house that is like that you sort of see through the window. Is at like a different angle and kind of fades out.
Right, and then because then the window blocks the very edge, and there's like a new building all of a sudden.
And I guess how the algorithmic thing works, it didn't quite understand that how a window would think. Yeah, anyway. Some of those things. My thought as like a punishment. I don't know, punishment for companies that get caught, using AI generated things, is that sort of I think of it as kind of like rubbing rubbing a dog's nose in their business or whatever, right? It's like no, you made this zombie with 6 fingers. Now you've got to keep like that. You can't change it. That's now the promo picture for this thing, and I want to see in the lore of this game why that zombie has 6 fingers. I want to see in the lore of this game why that building is fading out. I want you to justify this to me.
Yeah, they're like, we can do the zombie thing. It's like, no, why is the building fading away?
Yeah,
Tell
it's
us.
like, no, you don't get to change it. You have to now go in and make that part of the world that you're creating. God. Yeah, you let the AI make it. Now you got to deal with it.
If you could teach the image generators about about depth.
Yeah, then they get ChatGPT to write the explanation as to why there's 6 finged zombies in there.
But if you could teach the image generators the idea of like depth and perspective, like you actually give them like a grounding, and this is how like representational art works. Instead of like impressionistic art, and just to be like, so in the background we want a beautiful city street with like a lot of old style houses of like what you might see in the whatever. It's like, then I will draw that first, and then I will put all the other stuff over top of it. Then I think people would find it less objectionable to be like, it's drawing like a human would think. But it's like, we're not going to get there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the algorithms are getting very sophisticated. I think you can say stuff like background, foreground, and all that kind of stuff.
But I don't think it will draw the background first and then say, let me draw over top of it, right?
I mean, you could probably do a picture, have it generate the picture, and then take that picture and say, now draw this thing on top of it. Like, tell it to do it in 2 stages or whatever. Yeah. But anyway.
Basically just sit and dictate. And I need a New York brownstone. I needed to just single one. Okay, now put another one beside it. Okay, now put another one beside it. Okay, no, change change each one up so they're just a little bit different from each other. Okay, yeah. Okay, I need them to be a little more red in color. Yeah, and just like sit there. The worst, like if you had an artist that you were doing that to, they just with the headphone on, and you were just talking,
that's
to them.
That's like, the
the nightmare.
It's the AI will never just be like, fuck
yeah,
I'm out. AI will do as many change orders as you want. All right, let's get on here to the new design for Victor.
Yeah.
In League of Legends.
And there's been some commentary that is not entirely I mean, it's very stereotypical, and I don't want to say demeaning. It's I think it's starting from a place of ignorance. Let's go with that.
So, for those of you who don't know, who are not familiar with this character, so this guy obviously he's the new Arcane. Well, the new Arcane series just came out, and so there's a push. It's that thing with like the way like the Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff comes out, and then they're like, but that doesn't match the comics at all.
Yes.
And then they're like, maybe we can change the comics. And there's a bit of that like, but the guy in the video game doesn't actually match what you guys are doing in Arcane.
Yes.
And they're like, well, maybe we can change the video game.
Yeah. They're like, oh well, we can't, like Pierce Brosnan.
But then everyone's like, but we like the video game version
in GoldenEye. Yeah.
Why didn't you do it the other way?
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And so anyway. They changed him to make him more like kind
willowy,
more slim, more slim and willowy.
I am gonna say in the picture that we put up against each other, that Victor's pose on the right, where he is he has a much more pronounced hourglass shape, like his waist cuts in real tight, and the way they have him standing is to accentuate his hips and to minimize the size of his legs.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is a very traditional feminine pose in comic books, right? Like that kind of thing of like, how do you draw somebody so they have the wasp waist and the big hips and like all that kind of stuff? And I was like, it is very interesting to see. They were like, we have a defined male character that we're going to draw in this way. And I think that's why on Reddit, why people are like, oh, therefore he's a twink because they're drawing him like a girl. Like I think that had to be where the synapses ran into each other, because that's what the discourse is now according to Reddit.
Yeah. No, and to be clear, see, you say stuff like according to Reddit or whatever.
Yeah.
This is according to the Victor Mains subreddit.
Oh, fair.
So
yeah.
these are the people who are invested in Victor as a character.
Yeah.
And, and it's fair. Like, whatever the change,
yes,
if a character that your main, have been playing for a while, goes through a whole style change, and he's got all new voice lines and stuff too. Then yeah, I think it's legit to be annoyed about that. That's totally reasonable.
And people will tie up a lot of their personality into the thing that they do 17 hours a day. So if you're a Victor main, and
people
you play LOL all that
spend
much,
a lot of time working on it.
Yeah, this is who you think you are. You're this person.
I hope not that, but yeah. I mean, here, I've been trying to find a good sort of comparison, but you can see here, this is the new version of Victor.
Yeah.
He also reminded me a lot of, if you played Darksiders 2, Death from Darksiders 2.
I have never played this game.
But he's got it's the sort of like skeletal almost thing where it's like, you don't have internal organs, and you've got like the giant chest and then no internal organs.
Yep.
And then, so this is what he was before. He still was, still was sculpted.
Yeah, you have your shoulders and you have a broad chest and you cut in at the waist because again, having a thin waist is still like, everybody likes to have a thin waist, and then the flare out. But the drawing there, I mean, as Juliemon says, that is very femme. It's not twink.
This might be a more representative image. Like that.
That's
like
the classic Victor.
Yeah, the classic Victor.
Yeah.
He was, he had a lot of people compared him to like Doctor Doom and stuff before.
Okay.
Where he doesn't really have that connotation anymore. He was also, before, he was a lot of like a lot of the voice lines were like, you shall become you shall become, or all humanity shall become machine, and all this kind of stuff. Where now he's more like, I need to save humanity. Like it's entirely like it's a different voice actor and different everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the Arcane voice actor probably who's
maybe
delivering lines. I mean, it would kind of make sense that you might, but yeah. It's like if you're again, point out in chat, lately homophobes are using twink as a blanket term because they get auto-modded when they use other words. But it's funny that it's because like
no auto mod can keep up with whatever the current
gay slang and Polari, I'm sure, is going to be completely impenetrable if you're not part of that culture, because I would not know. But yeah, the amount of people I see on the Yuri manga Discord I hang out on who talk about, twink, but no, versus femboy, versus, and it's like seeing that, because very heavy LGBTQ population on that Discord. I'm just there for the really fantastic memes. But when they do get into the conversation about it, and there are there are like, there's like razor sharp, like you wouldn't call so-and-so this, you would call them this. Or here's about 3 more adjectives you have to put on top of that for that to make sense.
you
I'm
gotta,
oh my God.
I'm sure there's endless arguments about it, about who's who and stuff. I do also want to show you, I screenshotted a couple this in the video, but just to illustrate, this is real. The Wikipedia page for twink brackets gay slang, with an example being Australian singer-songwriter Troy Sivan, apparently.
All right.
And also a helpful picture of Twinkies.
One of the possible origins for the term.
I just love, it's like, here is a person who might be called a twink, and here are a picture of Twinkies, so you don't get confused.
There's a backronym. Oh my God. Teenaged white into kink. I think is what I saw.
That.
I'm like, well, thanks, Wikipedia. I should give you some money this year. You're right. You are doing the world a service.
Yeah, if Wikipedia wasn't there, we wouldn't know this.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, people and I don't know. Yeah, I ended up using the picture at the end of the moderator of the Victor Mains thing stepping at me and like, okay, we're not going to have any more threads about, Victor's sexuality or, whatever. There's like a couple different things. It's like, let's cool off, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
let's concentrate on the like gameplay part. There's some threads here. Yeah, though not good. So points for the moderators to begin. Maybe they could have earlier. Who knows? But anyway,
yeah. I mean,
they're good for doing that.
I mean, it's fair though, right? Because it's like if Victor himself looks like from what we've seen in Arcane, like the picture that I saw from Arcane, like, oh, that looks like a very emo style of dude. A man who doesn't really like himself very much either.
Right.
And I'm like, good, because it seems like the Victor mains don't like themselves much either anyway. Like, I hate who my character is. It's like, I mean, yeah, great. You're really buying into it. Any more stories? Did we do anything else on ChillPoint?
We broke itch.io.
Oh, right, yes. I wrote that story.
So yeah, this whole Funko thing about Funko Pop. There's this, and it was one of these stories that sort of happened and then was resolved before ChillPoint happened. Because I think the entirety of the outage was like
it was
5 or 6 hours.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Itch.io went offline because their domain host pulled them off. The domain host pulled them down because of a
fan page for
because their domain host received a notice that there was a scam. It was like scam or
it was a fraud or phishing complaint.
Right, fraud or phishing complaint,
and it was automated. It was automatically generated by a third-party company.
I don't know if that has been confirmed. Well, but that was the assumption.
Yeah, Brand Shield's whole thing is that we use AI to craft these response. We find the things and craft the response.
Technically, their thing is they use AL to craft these things.
Oh, you're right.
Because they misspelled it on their website.
That's right. I forgot. Maybe they meant artificial learning. Like, who knows? Right.
But yes. So they received this thing, and they, it appears that it shouldn't have been an issue because this was like a fan page for the Funko Pop game that linked to the actual site.
Yeah.
But whatever the case, the Itch.io was like, okay, fine, we'll take that site down.
Yeah.
Their web host, who also received this message, acknowledged that they said it took it down, but the domain host never did.
Yeah.
And it seems as though because they never resolved it, they were just like, well, take it down.
Yeah.
And
take down the whole site.
Yeah, not just that subdomain.
Yeah.
take down the whole site. Which again, so it's just like, who the sort of levels of responsibility, right? It's like, the notice probably shouldn't have been sent in the first place, but it was sent in reference to that one subdomain.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't have been sent anyway. Even when it was sent, they should have, acknowledged that it was taken down. Even if they didn't acknowledge that it was taken down, they should have only taken down that subdomain that was the one that was infringing, not the entire domain.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of mistakes made, and a lot of it was possibly the domain host fault. But the reason why they got into that position was maybe other people's fault. I don't know. Anyway, it's a shame. It sucks. Apparently, also because this was like happened at night over the weekend, and so they couldn't get in touch. The Itch.io guy couldn't get in touch with anybody at the domain host to fix it.
Yeah.
And so put his thing out on Blue Sky or whatever.
Yeah.
And apparently that caused so much sort of backlash and things that the domain host called his mom.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to work that in any way. I wish I had, but
I don't know if that was one of those things where
couldn't find a hole,
or the contact information on the domain was still from when he lived at home or something weird like that.
Oh yeah.
Why his mom would anyway. I'm glad it's been resolved.
God, yeah, that's funny.
I bet whatever the case, his domain registrar, I want my name, which now to be fair, so I want my name. It sounds a little cheap as a domain registrar.
Sure does, yeah.
But apparently, is actually, I believe it's an Australian registrar.
Okay.
But it's apparently, at least it used to be, quite well regarded as a domain registrar. And I think they got bought by somebody else at some point. And
Okay.
stuff. So it wasn't like, they were using some weird fly-by-night domain registrar. Apparently it was a reasonably well-known domain registrar. But anyway, the damage that this has done, I would imagine that the kind of people who want to use this whatever brand shield don't really care that much that they accidentally took down a thing that they weren't supposed to.
Yeah.
Which, and to be clear, part of this whole thing is that what was sent wasn't a DMCA takedown notice, which is the kind of thing that which is sort of what you would expect in this circumstance.
Sure.
And there's a legal built into the DMCA thing. There's a process that happens when you get a DMCA notice. It was this fraud phishing notice, which is sort of an escalation.
Yeah.
And so presumably this company sends these kind of notices because it gets they get the thing taken down more often.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Even though they probably shouldn't be sending that, they probably should be sending DMCA type notices.
Yeah, and maybe what they're doing is by reporting something falsely, but they're like, well, you know what? It's all an automated whatever. We can always point to, the AI decided to do this. It's like you programmed the thing to do it this way. So, because I would assume that if you try to, that in itself sounds like fraud. Right? It's like I've reported it incorrectly. I have said I said the wrong thing to get noticed more, because then I know that it means that the stuff will get pulled down instead of a DMCA request, which is, it's notify, and then eventually we can actually get somewhere with getting something out of you. It's like it's fraud or phishing. The web host will be like, I don't want fraud on my platform. Click, they just get rid of you.
And then the final story we talked about is the sort of narrow focus on the United Healthcare CEO killing and the guy who was arrested for it, Luigi Mangione. And obviously it's a whole that has a lot of different aspects to it, shall we say. But for our purposes, the part that was very egregious is this article. You know, I don't think this was a sentiment that was actually being expressed like that far and wide.
Yeah.
But it was this particular article was just so egregious. This NBC News article that had these great lines of like, he once belonged to a group of Ivy League gamers who played Assassins, which I love that, like, not only did they say they played they played Assassins, but for some reason the fact that they were like Ivy League gamers, and that's repeated like often in the article, that it is not just that he and his friends at school. It's important that the school was an Ivy League school.
Yes, exactly. That these moneyed elites, right? These, like, it's so weird because every bit of American news media falls along that left-right scale at this point, right? They all do, and they're all going to have their built-in bias, but there is this thing. Seeing that, I was like, really? Like,
and so he played Among Us.
Yeah.
Which I believe I think like they should have that, like Among Us should have it on their store page, the description they gave, which was like, secret space assassins.
Yes. Jesus. As reported in NBC News. Yeah. As lionized.
And it's just, I mean, not only is, obviously the relationship between video games and violence is not something that is has been proven in any way. But also, Among Us is like this like super cartoony game.
It's not a killing simulator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not, he's not playing any of the like, whatever Carmageddon, Doom,
America's Army.
Whatever the different games are that are often, cited, or GTA or whatever. It's playing this like super cartoony game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way the article is framed, there's a bit of it sounds like it's kind of like one of his buddies who like played Among Us with him was just like, oh hey, it's kind of funny. It's like ironically he's like, oh, he was he was the
we used to play Among Us all the time, which is funny because it's a game where you kill people.
Yeah. And then like that's and whether he speculated
what's that? What you said? I gotta write that down. I'll be right back. Stop the presses.
There was somebody sitting in the next booth who was like, "Moo."
the two things. I think that for that level of journalism, I think that A or B could have happened. That reporter was like, I found an angle, right?
Yeah.
Or they have a senior editor who said to them, we found an angle, you go write this. And they're like, I have to what? And it's like, you go write this. It's like, and my byline's going to be on this. It's like, you bet. Because that's how you got it. That's how you get big in the news business, is you got to write news. It's like, okay. And then they wrote up the thing, and then it's like, okay, I guess this is what's going out there. And it's got my name on it now, and I have to fucking stand by it. And I'm like, that could have happened.
Yeah.
So either one of those situations. But the second thing is, NBC News, if that's the quality of journalism they're putting out at this point, I think they need to reevaluate and maybe experience a little bit of shame. And I think the people involved who write it should feel a little ashamed of themselves as well.
Yeah, I mean, unless there's some sort of unless the artist or the author of it, has some sort of mea culpa, sort of dismissal, like rejection of it.
Yeah.
I definitely think that like any future reporting that this person does, I expect to see like, oh, really? Are you the same person who did this?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I think it should follow them.
Or if not that, I think that from now on, in every story that they cover, they should have to ask the people involved in the story what video games they play.
Oh, it's true.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's the thing, right? It's like, if you look at violent things that have happened in the last, 10, 15 years, school shootings, terrible things, people blowing up stuff, people doing horrible things. If you look at what they did, a lot of them played video games. but that's also because a lot of people play video games.
Yep.
It's like the most common thing that people do. It's like, people watch movies. I mean, that's the Bowling for Columbine. That was,
what music did they listen to? It's like a lot of people listen to music.
yeah. It's like, why
movies.
don't we, it's like they went bowling right before the Columbine shooting. Why don't we blame bowling for the
Exactly.
thing, right? That was the sort of premise. And it's just like, everybody plays video games. And so, they probably did play video games. And although, as Greg pointed out, like, it's always like, Madden or Call of Duty or whatever. Like, they're always playing like the boring video games.
Exactly.
Not boring, but I mean,
kind of the bog standard.
The people are playing the most popular video games, which is not surprising.
Yeah. When it comes out that the person who kills the next CEO was playing nothing but Balatro 24/7, then I really want to know about that. It'd be like, why? What? Jesus.
Something specific. Yeah, they were a big Tetris pro or something.
Or they're like really into Prayer Warriors. They're just into really like dog shit games, and they're like, and that was what caused them to do it.
Anyway, let's move on to. For one thing.
Oh my God, he had 8.5 hours and Stand Against the Devil. Fine, okay, whatever. Let's move on. Wholesome snack.
I was gonna say let's move on to the outro, where I will say that a lot of people in the comments are very supportive of you coming out as being a furry.
I did not. I just simply was asking a question.
Well, people were reading between the lines.
Oh, were they? That's
and they were like, "You don't have to worry. You don't have to be ashamed.
You can just say that you are," and it's like,
it's okay. It's okay.
Then I would, wouldn't I? Yeah.
I didn't watch it live, but I caught up on some of the Wholesome Snack Showcase, and I mean, I gotta say that a lot of those games definitely do look like my jam.
Yeah,
it's there. I mean, I don't need games to be like super wholesome and stuff. I like shooters and things.
Yeah.
But it's just when it's so like when it's like, oh, you can have a bunch of sort of military shooters or like futuristic things, and it's all like gray and brown and stuff, and then it's like, or fun cartoony stuff, and it's all like bright colors and things. And I'm not actually like super into a lot of the sort of cozy
mix potions and talk to a fox.
The sort of not walking simulator, but like the
Animal Crossing simulator.
Yeah, the sort of like where there isn't any particular sort of goal. You're just kind of like doing stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of I don't like necessarily going for those kind of games too much, but they do look very nice. I just like the way they look.
Cozy Grove just started a game trial on Switch for the next 5 days. And it is a story of you play a spirit scout, and your job is to like
I think I remember saw
the
trailer for that like a couple years ago.
Yeah, and I played it for about 4 hours last night, and I was like, oh, I like this, but I also see, because there's a certain point in the game, even like I got up to a certain point, and my Calcifer, Flamey, that's his name. It's basically Calcifer. The fire spirit that I'm talking to is like, nobody has any more spirit logs, so I have no more spirit wood to burn. So you can just wander around and do stuff if you want, but you probably come back tomorrow and there'll be stuff to do. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. You built into the game, it's time for you to take a break because you've done as much as you can accomplish right now.
Is a spirit log what you get after you kill a tree?
No, the actually, you know what? I don't know where they come from now that you mention it, but that's been interesting. And looking at a lot of the stuff in the Wholesome Snack, I was like, oh, this is cool. Hey, do you want to build rockets in a cute way? Do you want to build trains in a cute way? And I was like, that's kind of nice. It's these are all there's like 2 games that have capybara in them, and I was like, okay, then I know where we're going. Capybara is the thing, but it's hard. I can't get excited about them because they're not exciting games. But I mean, I find them interesting. I just never really get to ever play them. So yeah.
Anyway, And then, I mean, I don't need to go into a ton of detail, done stuff about the Video Game Awards because we talked about it for 3 hours yesterday.
Yeah.
So if you want our takes, you can get it there. But the same criticisms that usually still apply, which is that the sort of merging of the awards with the trailer hype feels feels like the awards are kind of an afterthought.
Yeah, and
which is a shame. Like the Oscars don't show trailers for new movies.
Not unless they've been paid for in the commercial breaks.
Well, but commercial breaks is different.
Yes.
But during the Oscars, like during the actual show, when people are all sitting in the audience, they don't put up a trailer for a new thing that's coming out on the big screen.
Yeah.
Because the idea is to celebrate that year's things, and Matt made this point when we were doing it, showing it's best best music,
right?
And they play a bunch of the music, and they show each thing, and they have the music, or it's best costumes, and they'll show scenes to show the costumes, right? So if you're somebody watching the thing who hasn't been to a lot of movies, see that and go, oh wow, I want to see that movie, right?
Yeah.
There's an effect there.
Yeah.
Whereas this is very much it's because the Video Game Awards is all about that sort of looking forward.
Yeah.
And they never, we talked about accessibility at the beginning of the thing. There was a best. There's
innovations in accessibility.
Innovations in accessibility.
Yeah.
Which is great.
But it's a technical award.
Well, yeah, but it's that's great that there's an award for that. But they go here's all the things, and the winner is this guy, and you're like, but what did they do?
Yeah.
I want to see. It's
what made that so cool?
Even in the technical Oscars, they go this guy for this awesome boom jib that he made, or some new innovation that they made, or something, right?
Yeah.
They will tell you. They won't just. But it's just this and this and this. I want to see whatever Call of Duty for their whatever innovative turning enemies into little blobs.
Yeah.
So in case you're afraid of those.
Exactly.
Or
an
their
arachnophobia setting that turns all the enemies not being spiders anymore.
An arachnophilia setting that turns everybody into spiders.
Which is, again, another furry thing that I swear to you, I will tell you if I think I'm a furry, for God's sakes.
And so it's just, and it's that kind of thing where it's use the game. It's they're using it to hype up the new games, which is fine. But it's maybe the hype up the new games show and the let's look back and hype up all the old games show should be two different shows.
Yes. And that there's nothing wrong with that, because that was E3. E3 existed to be the hype up the new shit, and it's it was on its own. They didn't try to run the Game Awards in the middle of it. They're you could do that. You could run 2-hour block of just, we're going to talk about all the great new shit that's going to come out in about the next 5 or 6 years if you want to sit down and wait. And the Game Awards starts now, and then they can do an hour of the Game Awards, and then it can be and now back to more of the same shit that you're watching we were going to find out about in 6 months anyway. And it's you could still do that. That's a possibility. And people would probably, I think they would respect it more.
And it's maybe if they have to be two different shows, then the Game Awards show might be smaller than the other one. But maybe that's okay. Yeah. And yes.
But show us what made it so cool, right?
I saw some people and got mentioning they had this Stantler and Waldorf bit, which was so. And the two objections that I have to that was one. So the first thing was there wasn't any kind of I was really hoping that there was going to be a Muppet, I don't know, game or movie or TV show or something that was being promoted as a reason for them to be there.
Right.
But there wasn't. There was no Muppet related thing.
Okay.
They were just there because, and so they were just there to say all the criticisms that that people had of the Game Awards.
And continue to have of the
And
Game Awards.
continue to have, because they didn't actually fix any of the criticisms.
Yep.
But they made Statler and Waldorf say them as if they were, those are only things that curmudgeonly old men would say.
Yes. When I'm like, come on, dude, most of this event is run by curmudgeonly old men.
Which sucks. But also, from the point of view of someone who is both a huge fan of the Muppets and has watched a lot of the original Muppet Show and is a comedy writer, it annoyed me so how they use Statler and Waldorf in the Muppet Show is they'll do the bit, they'll do a sketch, and then it'll cut to Statler and Waldorf, and they'll be like, well, I didn't, that was okay. It was okay when it ended, or, whatever.
Yeah, they rag on it.
Yeah, whatever their thing is.
Short little bit.
Yeah, and then it'll go to the next shit. They hardly ever interrupt a sketch.
Right.
With Statler and Waldorf.
Right.
They'll comment at the end of the sketch, but they won't interrupt, because if they interrupt the sketch, they're like, well, I don't like watching this, and then the people on stage will be like, come on, guys, keep watching, or whatever. There's if they interrupt the sketch, then
they're part of it.
And within the logic of the scene, they're heckling this people on stage. So, unless there's a resolution to that,
yes,
there's no reason for them to stop heckling the people on stage, right?
Right.
Like the thing they did at the Video Game Awards was they would be like, hey, they would just heckle Jeff Keighley sort of partway through.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, the board show, it's way too long. Why don't you only show trailers?
Yeah.
And then he would be like, well, he would sort of say something else, and then that would be it.
Yes.
And it would be like, if they were actually heckling the show, they would just keep going.
Yes. And they'd win, which is the
Right.
thing. I appreciate that Jeff thinks that he's doing this so that he can show that he's laughing at himself, but what he's actually doing is he's Gary stewing is what he's doing. I'm sure that to him it's like, I want to show that, yeah, I'm hearing what you're saying. I'm hearing that we hear the complaints or whatever, but we like this, and we know there's people out here who like this, and so we're gonna make fun of the fact that we get ragged on all the time by showing me winning against the Muppets, and that's not what the Muppets are for.
So, in order to make, if they do interrupt it, on the Muppet Show, if they did interrupt a show,
yeah,
then yeah, because so now they're part of that sketch. So either they have to, the guy, either they have to win. By which I mean they stop the sketch. Sometimes the Fozzie ones, they would actually just heckle them off stage.
Exactly.
Or sometimes the people on stage would win because they start arguing with each other, which would happen sometimes. Or they would explode or something. They would resolve it in
definitive
some way.
resolution. Yeah.
They would resolve it in some way.
Yeah.
And they didn't, and it annoyed, if they wanted to do the Statler and Waldorf and they'd done it they show the trailer for Honkai Star, the new Honkai Star Rail update or whatever.
Sure.
And then it comes back and Statler and Waldorf go, oh, I got it Honkai Star Rail a little while ago, but then I ran out of money or so, or it's whatever, some joke about the thing that you just saw
that is safe for the CEOs to hear.
Which, yeah, I mean, they obviously don't want to do too much of that, but if they had done a joke about a thing you just saw rather than about the show as a whole,
yeah,
I think that would have worked. It's still kind of weird, but it could have worked. But anyway, that's my annoyance, both from that sort of the fact that the show, the sort of the kind of straw man thing of doing it at the show, and then but also just using them wrong from a comedy point of view annoyed me. Anyway, yeah, because I mean that's the why do we always come here? I guess we'll never know.
Yeah,
because there is that, and that happened. They get called out on that occasionally on the show too. It's like, why do you guys keep coming back?
Yeah, and the thing is, they keep coming back.
Yeah,
so I mean, that in itself should be a little bit telling if you want to interpret it that way, right? It's like we rag on the Game Awards every year, and throughout the year, if we have an opportunity to, we will goof on it if we can. But we keep coming back to co-stream it, and I don't understand why. Because it's like, but at the same time, it is because it is it's like, well, it has emerged as a cultural event, and while we could decide to not pay any attention to it, that would not do a service to the checkpoint side of the business. I think we need to know that these things happen so that we can talk about them on the checkpoint side of the business. So
it's a snark outlet. I
It
like
is.
that. I like that description.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's quickly talk about a couple things that didn't make it into the actual episode of Checkpoint. Starting with a Cyberpunk 2077 just got a 2.2 update,
okay.
which is surprising because they said the last update was the last update they were going to do.
So what game-breaking bug did they fix?
I don't know if I guess they fixed some bugs, but they also they added some features. And to be fair to them, I did actually really enjoy that they sort of put I do like it. Helldivers does this as well, where they sort of do patch updates
In universe,
and because of course Cyberpunk, it's all technology stuff.
Yeah.
They can actually be like, this thing in the game actually got an update.
Yeah.
So this cool. So they there's a new thing for customizing cars where you can there's a whole bunch of new custom paint jobs on some cars, and you can actually like copy the paint job from like a car you just see on the road. You can go like, I want to copy that paint job and use it on my own car. And so, but how they do is like, simply scan your car with Kiroshi Optics, switch to the Twin Tone TM tab, and then save the vehicle's color scheme for a small fee. Then you'll be able to select the scheme in the Twin Tone database under the Crystal Coat menu. There you can have the generic color. There you have all the color schemes for your Crystal Coat compatible cars, because not all vehicles are Crystal Coat compatible.
Already, okay, yeah.
As in,
you can't
like,
paint a cop car.
As in, like, there's some car, some things. Please note that the color scheme cloning is not authorized on vehicles that are linked to quests, belong to the NCPD, or that are incompatible with the Crystal Coat tech.
I like that they literally just call out that are linked to quests. Yeah. I'm like, we don't do that here in the real world. We don't say, I'm sorry, you can't paint your car. It's linked to a quest. I'm like, what? It's my car. It's my car. It's linked to a quest. You don't know it yet, but in about 6 years, someone's going to steal your car for a good reason. For a good reason. They're going to crash it and have to get out and walk, but it was for a good reason.
They've also updated a lot of they added a bunch of more character customization stuff. 32 eye colors. I didn't even know there were 32 eye colors. 32 new eye colors, 18 lip makeup types, 17 nail colors, 10 cheek makeup types, 16 eye makeup types, 4 face scars, 5 eyebrow shapes, 4 face tattoos, 2 body tattoos, and 8 cosmetic face cyberware options.
Now, if it was me, I would have ordered them more into a 12 Days of Christmas. Yeah.
Disappointing.
Yeah. 4 face tattoos.
Yeah. And now your partridge can now operate within the pear tree. So they've added a bunch of stuff for like photo mode and all this stuff. So anyway, if you are into Cyberpunk 2077, make sure you get this update, because there's a bunch of cool new things.
Good. Great.
Sorry. There's another silly patch notes things, but the Cyber Psycho sighting where the bodies hit the floor fixed an issue where no shard could be found on the psycho and the Cyber Psycho's body, blocking progress. So just
that's complicated.
The body didn't hit the floor properly.
Exactly. Yeah.
The body fixed an issue where the body hit the floor incorrectly.
I'm just picturing Red Dead Redemptions now. A guy falls over and he starts, and then he just flies off into the distance. Also, I like that I associate that with RDR, that it's like, I'm sure that's been in other games, but that's where I see it now, as it always happens in Red Dead Redemption.
Power Path of Exile 2
Yeah.
also Path of Exile 2 just came out.
It's like a Diablo-ish type of game, right? I've never played it. So.
Yeah, it's sort of the original Path of Exile kind of filled the gap between Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 when it became clear that Diablo 3 was
not coming immediately.
Well, not coming immediately, and also that Blizzard had decided to go in a different direction for Diablo 3,
Fair.
in a more shall we say mass market direction. Simplifying some of the mechanics and stuff. Whereas Path of Exile sort of put themselves forward as like, this is for the real.
Here's the Grognard option.
This is the people who are really into Diablo 2 and want that, but even more and better.
Cool.
And then Path of Exile 2 is sort of extending that.
It's for the sickos. Nice. I like that is a positive term now. I love that if something is for the sickos, it's like then that's when you know that that's the good shit, right?
So they've the thing that the big change that they made is apparently they've made things more rewarding.
Oh, good.
They said so. The problem they had, people weren't getting enough
Loot
stuff, so they made they've improved the rarity bonuses for all the modifiers on the monsters and stuff. So like the harder monsters get better for drops and stuff.
What you want? That's what I want. Get me my gnarled root.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, there's again lots of patch notes stuff, but anyway, the end result being that what I think is actually really interesting thing is that they're talking about in the thing is that they say one of the major problems players have been feeling is that the game is not rewarding enough. This is an area where we have to be very careful when adjusting because it is hard. You don't want to reduce.
Yeah, don't nerf.
You don't want to reduce the drops, right? Otherwise, people will be like, "Hey, you took those away from us."
Yeah.
So they say we have identified a few key areas that we believe will significantly improve the experience that players were having. So they want to make it more rewarding to take out harder enemies, but not increase the loot. Because this idea that from what I understand, Path of Exile is a game that does have the sort of economy of the game is pretty important.
Right.
And so
you want to say instead of a 1% buff, it's a 2% buff to this one weapon that you'll get from this enemy.
Right. But you don't want to if you have to take it away, that even if it's the thing that we gave you anyway, we gave it and then we took it away, that's a real feel bad.
Yeah, absolutely. So they are in the process of the new version, the new release, the new update has made those changes that they're like, we're doing this and we're hoping it's going to be correct. Is that what's
that's their current thing. I mean, they're in, it's sort of, I don't know if it's in early access, but it's sort of in it just came out. So they're sort of in the process of working it up and figuring out. Apparently the biggest sort of criticism right now is sort of how much that there is not much late game stuff, but it's only been out for 4 days. So
people did say, early access. I saw that come up in chat.
Yeah,
and I was
early access, yeah.
And I was like, I could just say that it's early access because I saw the words early access in chat, and I have no idea if that's what
people
were
are
talking
accessing it early, whether or not.
Anyway.
Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is just starting its 4th season, which will be its last, which is mainly significant in the sense that, considering the couple of stories we've done recently about huge games that had no time.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
The fact that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which was like, universally considered to be a failure.
Yeah.
Has had 4 seasons.
Yep.
And has like kept going for a while is kind of interesting.
Who's the dev? Who's the publisher?
So Suicide Squad,
Warner Brothers.
Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, and it was made by Rocksteady, the people who did like the Arkham City games.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
But yeah, so the 4th season season 4 will launch on December 10th with Deathstroke. The other interesting thing, so it's a
team-based shooter.
No, it's not a team-based, but it is a
RTS. I can keep guessing.
It's a live service type game.
Oh, okay.
So there's constantly updates and different stuff.
You're paying to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't think there's a subscription for it.
Oh,
but
it's free. Okay,
yeah.
so it's free to play, but you're paying for pieces of it.
You have to buy the game. You buy the game.
You buy the game, then you play it.
Yeah,
and then
play it.
updates come.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Although it was also given away for free a few times.
Oh, rare, I guess. Yeah, Maricat got it free last month. Awesome.
Yeah. But they are. It will launch. Season 4. Part of the season 4 update is going to launch with an offline mode.
Ah.
So basically, I mean, this is the we're not going to do any more updates, and then at some certain point after that, we're going to turn off the servers.
Right.
So we're going to put in an offline mode so you can actually still get it. So, yeah, which is appreciated. In fact, to be honest, maybe playing in an offline mode would be, I really like the Arkham games. I heard that this isn't very good, but like the Maricat said, I also have it for free because it was on the Epic. Epic gave it away I don't know 3 or 4 months ago.
Right.
And everyone was like, "Wow, really? Oh, well."
And you start to think to yourself, you're like, I guess it's not long for this world. If you're giving away a game, you're immediately thinking, oh, I guess it's going to be dog shit, or that it's going to be closed down, or sometimes that happens, right? You get that value discussion happens in your head where it's like, well, if they give it away for free, it must be worth much. It's like, I don't know, we give away all our content for free.
Mm-hmm. Oh no. Speaking of things that are not doing too well, this is just sort of came up in a random interview with Michel Ancel, who's was the developer behind Rayman, right, and most notably Beyond Good and Evil. Notably for this case, because he was the developer, or he was the sort of
he was working at Ubisoft.
He was the lead dev behind Beyond Good and Evil.
Okay.
And left Ubisoft. Partially because there was a lot of issues with Beyond Good and Evil 2. Mm-hmm. When he left, there's also some stuff about that maybe there were some interpersonal things that were not good also, because apparently Ubisoft has been having that with every...
Did the word harassment come up in this reason why he might have left?
I don't think harassment. It might have been more not specific harassment, but more just being a really kind of an asshole to work with.
Okay, fair. All right. Interesting. Okay. So we don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, but what happened in this article, he is talking about how people asking what's up with Beyond Good and Evil 2, because it was.
You should know something.
I was enjoying during the video game awards, any trailer starts this could be good Beyond Good and Evil 2.
Right.
Literally any game could be Beyond Good and Evil 2, because we've seen 3 trailers for it over the past 10 years, and each one has been dramatically different from the one before.
Okay.
And so say Ansel highlights. So he's saying that the problem is that there's sort of too many cooks working on stuff. He's saying Ansel highlights a handful of clashes and changes among the development team, including the art director, who wanted to redo everything over and over again, the game's director, who wanted to make a generated dungeon game, which was the opposite of what Michel
Yeah.
Beyond Good and Evil is was a story-driven sort of platformy type game.
Right.
Third person kind of run around stuff. Anyway, it's clearly there was some, shall we say, irreconcilable differences in the dev team. They were kind of running off in all different directions, which I guess is why we haven't had a Beyond Good and Evil 2.
Okay.
Because there was a teaser for it. They came out 3 or 4 years after the first one came out. That looked kind of fun. And then most recent, I think the last one was 5 years ago or something, or 3 or 4 years ago, was this open world or open universe. It was this whole thing.
It's No Man's Sky.
It was kind of got a No Man's Sky thing. At one point they were doing a thing where they were we're going to have a ton of user generated content. And everyone was how are you going to do that? And well, we're going to ask people to
be coders.
Going to ask people to make content for us. And then we'll have that content. and that will be in the game.
Can I say,
And they're like, are you going to pay people for that? No.
the fact that every time the Beyond Good and Evil 2 trailer has come out, or that the whispers of it or whatever, right? Every time it's come out, it's looked like a different style of game.
Yeah.
And then you also refer to the fact that the reason why it's having so much trouble is too many cooks. And Adult Swim released that video a while ago titled
Too Many Cooks?
Too Many Cooks, that
Too
was
many
literally
cooks.
about a theme song and a sitcom that was constantly changing into a different style every
Yeah.
minute or so. And I'm like,
I
funny
mean-
how all those things kind of come together.
I feel like Beyond Good and Evil 2, it's the same thing as like the Skull and Bones,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Where it was like everybody knew what the sequel should have been,
Right.
and it wasn't that complicated.
Yeah.
It should have been like, a year or two to do.
Yeah.
Like it was just like it's like it. Beyond Good and Evil was a fun game.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a world-shattering game.
Sure.
It was just like a fun. You run around and you take pictures of stuff and you fight some enemies and things, and like it was just a fun game. And it's like they could have just made that game, like they could have made just a bigger, better version
Sure.
of that game. It wouldn't have taken that long to do, but then somehow they got kind of like tangled up in themselves. And then Skull and Bones is the same thing, right? It's like everybody just wanted. It's like Black Flag. You've already made all the ship stuff. Just do that.
Yeah, just make it stand on its own. Can I take us back to the 1980s?
Sure.
All right. So, because I think that's interesting, our take on sequels, I think, we'll try to stay into just video gaming here, but our take on sequels is largely informed by, hey, you make a game, and then like another game comes, then your company makes another game. Like, I mean, Defender begat Defender 2. Like, they did actually make a sequel to
And
to
yay,
Defender,
Defender.
and then Defender
begat Defender
3.
2, which begat yes.
Yeah, and so and Donkey Kong begat Donkey Kong Jr. begat Donkey Kong 3. But I mean, Super Mario Brothers that's what it was, and then Super Mario Brothers 2, which we know as the Lost Levels, that one specifically, it was literally, let's take the original Super Mario Brothers and let's just make the levels harder and
Just
make
more
Luigi
levels,
jump higher,
right.
right? We'll change the characters' physics a bit and we'll make more levels and make them more difficult. And but to North America, they were like, oh, we don't like that, and so they said, let's just reskin Mario 2 from Doki Doki Panic.
Right.
So that's the thing where you have divergent sequels
Right.
for different markets. But that is very telling, because I think what survived of that was the hot new thing is what survives. And yet, Legend of Zelda and Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, we did not follow on the path of Legend 2: The Adventure of Link as like that's the way that Zelda game should work. Because it was like, no, after that we went back to Link to the Past, went back to the top-down wandering around thing. But then Zelda games changed again over time. That kind of continuous whatever. And I think that where at least in the Nintendo's sphere is like they are interested in iterative development of an idea until they hit a breaking point where they're like, okay, what's the thing that has to change about this idea to make something different? And thus, Twilight Princess or Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword. I'm leaving some out, obviously. But then we get to Breath of the Wild. It's like similar idea, but now it's in the open world concept. And then they're like, let's refine that idea in Tears of the Kingdom. And after that, it's like, well, now what happens next? Like, what's the iterative basis on that? And it sounds to me like a lot of big studios are like, hey, we started here, Beyond Good and Evil, but we haven't made a sequel to it in like 10, 15 years. So how do we get from The Legend of Zelda to Tears of the Kingdom in one jump?
Well,
and I think that's their problem, is they're not like, you should be iterating on these games more to feel where it's going.
And you end up with the problem that, like, I mean, video games have a particular issue where I know they talk about, like, Duke Nukem Forever had this problem.
Yeah.
Where if the game is, if development of the game is falls below a certain rate, then the technology changes.
Yes.
And so you have, you get to a certain point and it's like this game that you were working on now doesn't work.
Right.
Because the technology, now it looks like poop because everything else is better.
Yeah.
and then you have to go back, and then you have to go back and redo everything, and so now and if you can't, if you stay below that sort of threshold, you'll just never you'll never be able to release it, and that's what happened to Duke Nukem Forever. They kept sort of getting stuck in this loop,
and we have to go to a new engine now because we're
and then it's like now it's got to be, now that it's been so long, it's got to be like twice as good as what it was going to be. And so now you get kind of, you
get stuck in your own head. Whereas Quake got Quake 2, got Quake 3, and then we have the spin-offs where like people are like making mod packs. So you have Half-Life and Half-Life 2, and it's like meanwhile, those games developed in a completely different direction because Duke Nukem didn't come out and stay apace with what was happening, and which bites them in the ass and kills that franchise.
Yeah, but it's a tricky thing, and it definitely requires, like, I think, Zelda has and Mario and stuff, and something that I think Nintendo has been excellent at is that sort of thing of like changing the style of a game while sort of maintaining whatever that sort of core thing is.
Yeah, which is a very conservative way to approach making a game, and it's actually not a bad thing.
But that if you play the original Zelda and you play Tears of the Kingdom, even though they're completely different games and have different orientations and different everything, it's still, there's something about it that sort of has that same kind of feel to it, and that's something that isn't that I think comes from the experience and stuff, and it's something that other companies have been able to do, but it is not necessarily the easiest thing to do.
It feels like Ubisoft should know better because of Assassin's Creed, right? Like they have been undergoing this iteration.
I mean, Assassin's Creed hasn't been doing Assassin's Creed only really changed, like fundamentally changed once. But they did a reasonably good job of it. Like there's sort of the new Assassin's Creed and the old Assassin's Creed, and they kind of have been working on I think the latest one, Mirage or whatever, has sort of gone back to the old one a little bit. But yeah, I mean that is an example of something where they were like, we're gonna rethink how it works, bring it out, and they did a change, and it was a pretty significant change, but it did still feel Assassin's Creedy.
Good.
But yeah, I don't know.
I feel like if you have that idea within the company, that you would be, I guess there's the secret sauce, and how do you communicate that idea out to all of your working groups to say the same thing?
And I mean, I think in to some extent, there is that sort of auteur thing, which there's a certain amount of bullshit to that. Yeah. But there is also a certain amount of like, as Michelle and Sil, you're saying, you do need somebody to kind of set the tone of the whole thing and get everything going. And if you've got a bunch of people all kind of zooming off in different directions, then you just end up with with very frustrated developers who are probably like, making
what is this supposed to be?
Making a billion different prototypes.
Yeah.
Or the thing where they always talk about, like, for Duke Nukem Forever, where I forget what his name is, but the guy from the Duke Nukem developer would, like, come back from a conference or something where they had seen, like, the cool new games, and
there's a new Unreal Engine, yeah,
and they'd be like, our game has to also have this thing, and so then everybody would have to drop whatever the hell they were doing, and for the next like 6 weeks they'd be working on this weird new feature, which was totally irrelevant to what they were doing.
And then a tangent to that, though, I saw a toot the other day, last night, that somebody, just an independent developer, had said, I had spent time learning, like 100% of my game development time I was dumping into learning how OpenGL 1.0 worked. Right, because like at the time that's what you did, right? So it's like I learned how that did, and then 2.0 came out while I was doing that. So then I dumped 100% of my time into learning how OpenGL 2.0 works. But then, of course, I had to learn how then the changes that came in ES. But then after that, then it was 3.0, then it was 4.0, and now I have discovered that OpenGL doesn't matter anymore to game development whatsoever. And that I've essentially fucked myself because I've spent all this time trying to develop games that would work in OpenGL this entire time. And to learn Vulkan. And it's like, right, I get that thing of if you have that, and especially when you're indie, it's like if that's what you chose to focus on, and then you realize at the end of the tunnel, you're like, there is no light. Somebody basically just painted a thing on a wall and it's been reflecting my flashlight the whole time at me. I thought I was leaving the tunnel.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Microsoft professional certified in Windows 2000 Pro.
Right? Yep.
You make you make your choices.
Yes.
Sometimes they don't work out.
Yeah.
How was I supposed to know that they were going to make more Windowses? Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. The last thing, just for fun here.
Okay.
Let's look at there's a new, because of course, to celebrate his 30th anniversary.
Oh, let's indeed.
There is a new collaboration between Sonic and Transformers. That's right. There's
If I know anything, I know that that Sonic and the trans community get along very well. So,
there you go.
yeah.
Wingtail and Blue Booster, which I guess is so you got Tails and you got Sonic.
No, that's Shadow. That has to be Shadow, right? The black and the yellow and the red has to be Shadow.
It's Wingtail. It's Tails because they turn.
Oh, he's got his head.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then you can see it here, and then they turn into Tails turns into the biplane which he flies in the games.
And Sonic turns into the car that he drives in the games.
And Sonic turns into the car, which he doesn't drive in the games, but that's fine.
Woof.
So these, to me, like my cousin had, like, especially when he was younger, had got into Transformers and stuff, as most little kids.
I love Transformers. Yeah,
certainly little boys. I don't know about girls, but I know from personal experience, and
they're for everybody. But
Transformers are awesome.
Yeah,
and he got into, like, he was getting Transformers, and I remember, like, he was, like, bringing them over and, like, showing them off and stuff, and I was like, they were super cool.
Yeah.
Like, they were way cooler than the Transformers that I had.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they had, like, magnets and stuff in them that they could, like, automatically, like, shift and change. And they were super neat. There was one that, like, was like a roll. It, like, was in a ball. And then you, like, roll it. And there was, like, a magnet platform. And so then you would roll it. And it would hit the platform. And that would, like, magnetically hit the, like, a latch. And it would just go. And, like, turn into it. Like, it was super cool.
That's awesome.
These do not look like that.
These feel very...
These feel very, like, drugstore. These feel like I would suspect that, like, look at the hands. Like, they look like... I would suspect, like, if I just saw these out of the package, it would be like, this is some sort of Sonic or some sort of, like... Sonic,
obvious plant. Yeah.
Sonic Transmorphers collaboration.
It's funny though too, because, like, the poses, like looking at the picture on the back and then looking at what we're seeing on the side there, it's like, no, they pose like Sonic has, like, a dynamic way he can stand, so you can move their legs around stuff, which is impressive because most of my Transformers, you could move the arms and you could kind of move the legs a bit, but they moved along a 90-degree axis and that was about it, right? Like,
I had one that was like a little dude who was just a car.
Yeah.
And the transforming was literally, you lift him up and there was a face on the bottom.
And you pull the arms out?
No,
not
that
even
was
that.
That was the transform. He just sat up on his butt.
There were some that my brother and I got these in the mail because we had enough box tops for it, and you pull them back, and then they would skitter across your floor, and when they would get to a certain point, when the gearing hit, they would transform by flipping. Like, the latch would unlock, and because of the momentum, they would
that's cool.
They would unlatch, and that would cause them to hop, and then if you were lucky, you could get them to, like, and they would actually land on their feet. More times than not, they did not.
That's
they just
super
kind of
neat.
flew into shit. But jump starters. But all they were two pieces that went click, pull, and then when they would flip, they just go click and then just stand up.
Right.
And they had no movable arms, no movable legs. But it was like, this is a neat idea. But I want my fucking Jetfire back. God damn it! If any of you has a Jetfire and you want to get rid of it, let me know. I want one I want the die-cast one for my desk.
Anyway.
And
he's got a shield that's also like a ring.
Oh, that's a good idea. I like that. I mean, when you do things that are like themed and on brand, I have to appreciate that. They look real goofy.
They look pretty darn goofy.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's the thing that's happening. It's one of these. It's that weird thing where it's like, the new Sonic movie's coming out, and so obviously there's a lot of Sonic stuff, but this isn't even like anything to do with the movie. Like these aren't like the movie versions of them. The biplane, I haven't seen the movie, but I don't think like the biplane features in the movie. Maybe it does, or the car. It's just like, oh, we'll just do some other Sonic thing that is relevant to this. Also, wait a minute. This up in the top corner, it's like
that X?
Sonic. Well, it's like Sonic 20, Superman, or Transformers 25. Sonic 20. That's not right.
That is not right.
It's at least his 30th anniversary.
Yes, at least his 30th anniversary. It's not Tails' 20th either. Like, what are they? I don't know.
And Transformers is over 40. Yeah.
Yeah. So this has to be.
I don't know what that means.
Wait.
Anyway,
hang on. 2025.
Wow.
It's next year.
I'm dumb.
Yeah.
I was like,
if you break it in half. I get where you're coming from.
I was like, what could they possibly mean by these two numbers?
Craddock put it into chat even. Oh my God.
Yeah. Why? What could these two numbers mean?
Trust someone with the good taste to own a boxed original Jetfire to be able to see through that ruse there. Thank you, Craddock. We appreciate that.
Anyway. All right. Clearly, it's time to end this stream. Because I don't know what date it is anymore. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. If you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. You can also support us here on Twitch by becoming a subscriber. You can become a member on YouTube.
On the LRR Video Games channel, or any of our channels, really.
Or you can also buy merch from the store.loadingreadyrun.com. In case it isn't obvious, stuff will not arrive by Christmas at this point.
Yep.
Even if there wasn't a postal strike happening
in Canada, yeah.
In Canada.
Because all of our stuff is served of the United States. That's why so many of the States get it so fast and so cheap for shipping.
But if you want to buy something from there to give to somebody for Christmas and say, I bought it, but Canada's having this postal strike right now, so it might not, I'm sorry, nothing I could do about it. It might not arrive until after Christmas.
Yeah, the holidays
will totally back you up.
The holidays are a great time to lie to your loved ones.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks everybody for joining us, and we will talk to you later.